Welcome to Spotlight Sessions, where we shine a
What's
light
your
on
story?
incredible impact. What does accessibility mean to you?
What's your mission? Welcome all to accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions, where we shine a light on incredible individuals and organizations and the work that they do. I'm your host, Josh Basil. I'm a C45 quadriplegic, paralyzed below my shoulders, and a power wheelchair user. I'm the Community Relations Manager at accessiBe and a passionate disability rights advocate and trial attorney, focused on breaking down barriers to access and inclusion for people with disabilities. Today on accessiBe Spotlight Sessions, we're joined by Van Brooks, the founder and executive director of Safe Alternative Foundation for Education. Welcome, Van.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate you having me.
Well, excited for you to be on the program and to dive into all your awesomeness. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm born and raised in West Baltimore. I'm the youngest. I'm the youngest of five. I have four older sisters, and so my life, growing up was beautiful. I was an athlete. Started playing football at a very young age. I went to private schools, and while at school, I started to play more sports, so basketball, football, lacrosse. Eventually went to Loyola Blakefield when I started, really growing into my body, growing into who I was as a young man at the time. And life was great. Like everything was great. Everything was great.
And then what happened?
Yeah, and then September 25th, 2004, my junior year in high school, during a football game, went in for a routine tackle, and my head collided with the runner's knee, and I had broken my neck in two places. And so from that, I was paralyzed from the neck down.
That day changed everything.
Changed everything, split second.
And then with the Safe Alternative Foundation for Education, what motivated you to found that, and when did that happen?
Man, it's such a crazy story because I was 16 at the time when it happened, and waking up in the hospital and hearing the doctor saying that I was paralyzed from the neck down, and telling my parents to begin to make arrangements to take care of me. I was naive in the beginning because it was one of those things where, as a kid, I always thought that if you break your neck, you die, right? And so for me, I'm like, well, I didn't break my neck. I'm alive. I'm here. I'm good. But that I did, right? I did. The reality of it was I did break my neck. But again, I had suffered plenty of other injuries and broken bones throughout my just athletic career that I didn't think anything of. I just thought that it was just, like everything else. I'll heal up. I'll be good to go. Give me a couple of weeks, couple of months, and I'm good. But, this journey was totally different, right? And so fast forwarding, I started to set small goals for myself once I realized that football was completely off the table. Once I realized that this process wasn't like any other process or any other thing I've ever gone through. I still had that football mentality of no matter what, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get to it, I'm gonna do what I can with what I have to get better. And so, that pushed me to set small goals, incremental goals like sitting up on my own for the first time, right? Those feeding myself, those kinds of goals. And as I began to accomplish those, I set higher goals, just like Norm set higher goals, which was graduating from high school, graduating from college, doing all of those things. And I accomplished those things. But to answer your question, it was 8 years into my injury, and I was it's wild. I was ready to give up on therapy at Kennedy, and I went in and I told my therapist, like, hey, I want to try to walk. It's been 8 years. I'm getting things back, but that's still my ultimate goal. And they allowed me to try, and I was able to take a couple steps on my own for the first time. And so went home, and it's so funny because I woke up from a dream that said start a nonprofit. I had no prior knowledge of a nonprofit. I didn't know anybody who had a nonprofit, but it was just nonprofit, right? And so I began to do research, Google. I had just graduated from college at the time, so fresh out of research mode. And I was like, let's get back to it. So Google University is what I call it. And I taught myself how to start a nonprofit, and I started my foundation, Safe Alternative Foundation for Education, in 2012. Literally a couple of days after taking steps on my own, a couple of days after having that dream of start this nonprofit to help others understand the importance of having an education and a backup plan for life.
I love any nonprofit that starts with a dream.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing because once if you dream big and you think big and then you actually act on it, it's just beautiful things can happen. And you've impacted a lot of families' lives. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about kind of what is that important piece of the puzzle to always have kind of an alternative career plan and how you promote that out to people in the area.
Yeah, so I mean, it's our lives are testimonies of why it's important to have a backup plan. For me, I wanted to go to the NFL. That was my dream. If the NFL didn't work out, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. But again, all of those things took into effect that my I had the physical ability to do so. Never in my wildest dreams, I'm sure never in your wildest dreams, or anyone who goes through such the things that we've gone through will ever imagine being paralyzed, right? And so my dad used to always say to me growing up, you're a good athlete, can't deny that, but never put all your eggs in one basket. What happens if you drop the basket? What happens if football doesn't work out? And again, I'm just, nothing's going to happen. I'm good, right? And then when it happened, that just started coming into my mind. I should have had a backup plan because everything I focused on was sports, was football. And so that story alone, when telling people and talking to kids and talking to families of, yes, you may be the best athlete, you may be the best at whatever it is that you're doing, but you should always have a backup plan because if something goes wrong, what are you going to fall back on, right? What are you going to fall back on? And I just share my story of I would have never imagined not making it to the NFL, let alone being paralyzed. And so just having a backup plan for whatever it is that you may do. The hope is that you may not have to use it, but it's always there for a security blanket in a sense.
And having that alternative career plan or backup plan, it's just it shows you that we all have so many different abilities. We're not just one thing. We're not defined by one thing. We can do many things, and it's just a matter of figuring out how to do it a little differently, or how to put your heart and soul into something new.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure.
And I would love to know, you've impacted a lot of lives, so I guarantee there's been some memorable moments and stories over the years. Can you tell me one with your nonprofit that's had a really big impact on your life?
Yes. This is by far one of my favorite stories. Um, because and we have other stories, similar stories, but the reason why this is my favorite is because it's a student from my first cohort of students that I've ever worked with my nonprofit. And so, the first is always the one that sticks with you. But this particular student, single family home, single mom, and he was a great student. He lives a block or two away from the center, my youth center. And I began to take him and other students to Loyola, where I went to school, exposing them to private schools and challenging them, saying, hey, you may not have known that these types of schools exist, but this is the school that I went to. And you can also go here. And they began to see the differences in just the campus alone, right? The school that he was attending at the time, K through 8, was unfortunately the size of Loyola's cafeteria, right?
Wow.
And so it's a really small school in a grand scheme of things. And so when he began to see like, well, wow, this is like a college campus. Even so much so when I took him there and I told him I went to school there, it went from you didn't go to school here to, well, I want to go to college here. So I'm like, well, you can't, right? Because this is actually a middle and high school. So he's like, well, I want to go to school there. And so I say, okay, I'll make a deal with you. And he was in the seventh grade at the time. I said, if you bring me straight A's your eighth grade year, I'll do everything in my power to get you into Loyola or a private school. Fast forward, he brought me straight A's. I helped him get accepted into 4 schools. He chose Crystal Ray. He went to Crystal Ray and was a shining star there. He graduated from Crystal Ray top of class. He is now a junior at Notre Dame. And he has, I mean, the wild thing is in 2 years of being there, I believe he traveled abroad 3 times. And so he's just a rock star. And it's that story that reminds me that I need to continue to do this because it does have an impact on people and not only on just him. His trajectory has changed. His family dynamics will eventually change as well once he begins to have his own family, right? And it's all because of this the exposure and the opportunities that were presented to him that he took full advantage of. And so
Well,
that's yeah,
that's so beautiful. And the thing is, it's just nonprofits that are doing great work like yours and just life changing work. It's like you get to underserved communities or communities that need that break or have that need that mentoring, and you touch them at a certain moment of their life. It's literally you just change the whole course of the direction they could have gone in or what they would have gone in. It's just and it's amazing to then watch that journey unfold.
yeah,
And that's one of the coolest things.
yeah,
And it's special. And so yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
absolutely.
And I would love to know what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word accessibility?
Equal access for all.
Equal
Equal
access,
access for all.
and that's another beautiful thing.
Yeah.
If we could have a world with that in it,
Yes. Yes.
that's a very welcoming world right there. And what role do you think technology plays in making the world a more exclusive place for people with disabilities?
So one of the most beautiful stories that I've heard in a while pertaining to technology, and I'm not just saying this because I'm here speaking with you, but your video that you shared of how I believe Alexa is helping you have your independency is amazing, right? And it was something that, yes, I understand how technology can help, right? Just because of my advocacy work, but seeing that at that level was amazing to see. And so, for those who haven't seen it, I know, but hey, Josh, for those who haven't seen it, they need to go and visit your page and see that story because it's beautiful of how technology can help so many people. And, as I was just talking about that, it reminds me of something that we did here with my students. We had did a project around uh, sip and puffs, building a sip. So we introduced my students to spinal cord injuries. Of course, sharing my story. They saw me ride the bike. They talked to my neurologist, my doctor at Kennedy, and they got insight into just spinal cord injuries and how it controls the body and the impact that it has. And then after that conversation, they wanted to do something. They wanted to help. And we had found a company that creates sip and puffs, and they sent us the materials to teach our students how to create these, and then we then donated it to someone who could use it. And I mean, it's just amazing that we have those things with the huge push for STEM, with the huge push for technology, and our kids doing things on the Xboxes and being able to do a 3D scan of someone and then create accessible joysticks for people to play games, right? Just technology is the way it's changing the world. It is getting us closer to an inclusive world for many of us living with disabilities. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
It is, and teaching the next generation about it so that they can continue to dream big as you always do, but then that they can then create the next device or the next technology that opens up even more doors.
Yes.
And it's a cool way of thinking when you know like there's not just a wall or a room that you're stuck in the rest of your life. Like kind of technology then opens the doors in so
Yeah.
many unique directions.
Yeah, for sure. You can change the world and help people while doing it.
Well, just in our lives, like we both were injured in the early 2000s. Like the world has changed like
Yeah.
in crazy ways just because of technology in the last 18, 19 years. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So another thing with your foundation is you do a lot around the power of vocational programs
Yes.
and how it can provide kind of real world application and open the door to other communities. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So for so long, college was the big push for a lot of schools, a lot of children. It's you go to school, you go to college, you get a job. But what about those students who don't want to go to college? What about those students who may not have an interest, who may not just like school, right? I was one of those students that didn't like school. I went to college to get my degree from my mother, right? Had my mother not really been like, hey man, I really want you to go to college, if I wouldn't have gone. I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, and I didn't feel that I needed to go to college to do that. But I went because my mother wanted that, right? And so the vocation, though, the message that was previously being sent, in my opinion, was if you don't go to college, you aren't successful. But there are so many opportunities in the vocations, and we focus on the construction industry and the trades. It's so many opportunities to build our community, build our city, build our state, build this world in the trades, and make a great living while doing it. And if you look at some students go to college, and you look at the statistics around those who go to college and don't finish, look at the statistics around those who go to college, finish, the amount of debt that they have compared to the job that they get leaving college, if they even go into a job for the degree that they went to school for.
So true.
In the same amount of time that I may have been racking up debt to go and get a degree, someone could be in a vocation making, part of that tuition that I'm spending every year, and building working their way up the pipeline in the same 4 years.
And getting that real world experience.
And so that's why I wanted to focus on the vocations, is because many of my students, success wasn't going to college. Success was graduating high school. Success was graduating high school and getting a well-paying job that leads to a career, right? And so I saw the vocations, I saw the construction industry as an opportunity for both those students who do go to college and want to get a job doing something in the construction industry, but also those students who don't want to go to college, don't have a desire for whatever reasons to go to college, and can still make a great living and raise a family and still do good in this world.
I love that. And there's so many businesses out there, and there's lots of gaps within these businesses when it comes to prioritizing access and inclusion.
Yes.
What do you think are some of those biggest gaps?
Some of the biggest gaps when prioritizing, I believe leads to the gaps. The lack of knowledge around individuals with disabilities. If I'm kind of word, I'm not really wording that right, but the misperception on individuals with disabilities, that it's going to cost more to have an individual with a disability working here because we have to make all of these crazy accommodations. The environment's going to have to change because we have someone working here with a disability. They're going to need special services because they're working here. Bottom line, it's going to cost more money to have someone working with a disability here, and not looking at, and this isn't all, but some, not looking at individuals with disabilities as people, not looking at the assets that people living with disabilities are. We're normal people. We just do things differently. Our mind still works great, right? We may not physically be able to do certain things, but we'll figure it out. We've had to learn to adapt to figure things out in our life. What makes you think working for you is going to be any different? We're going to figure it out.
We're incredible problem solvers.
Exactly. Some of the best problem solvers.
Tested every single day, which is an asset to any business.
Yes. And so I think that misperception leads to the gap for many employers.
Thank you, Van. And I want to thank you again for being our guest today on accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions. Really enjoyed your voice, your time, your insights, and all that you do. Thanks, man.
No, thank you. This is great.
And to all of our guests, thank you so much for staying to the end of accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us at accessiBe_community. And as always, thank you for being on this journey with us. Bye, everyone. Bye, Van.
See you, Josh. Thanks again.